Warning! The following live broadcast may contain loud, obnoxious, shrill, and alarming noises that might be considered disturbing, if not outright uncomfortable to listen to, especially if you are wearing headphones like that. I share my office space with an African gray parrot and two parakeets, and I have no control over their behavior while I am live streaming, unlike my regular videos where I have the opportunity to edit them out as best as I can. If you are sensitive to loud, surprising background noises, especially those that sound like garbage trucks and uh, smoke detectors that need their batteries changed, I recommend either not turning your volume up too loud or watching my edited pre-recorded videos instead. Viewer discretion is advised. But then again, I think viewer discretion is advised for a lot of things. God knows what we end up talking about, but hey. So hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Egoworks DRAWStream. On this lovely Wednesday, December the 3rd. Already it's like the fact that it's December is just, I don't know. Look, my brain is still back in January 2020, It's like, I mean, really. So let's see who's joining us today. So hello, Joseph. Hello, and HR. Hello, and Afreen. Hello. Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So oh hey Lou, there she goes. Lou coming in at the last minute. There you go. Oh my goodness. So like I said, welcome everybody. And if you are, and of course, if you are one of my eyeball people, my beautiful eyeball people watching from regions beyond, if you are watching YouTube or watching from Twitch, welcome. And while you're here, why don't you come on over, join the sexy people in the chat, keep them company, and also make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever any of my shows go live. So so I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to make sure to keep these draw streams on a semi-regular schedule, considering how long that I have spent not really streaming regularly. So hopefully we can keep this up. So I guess we might as well get this party started. So hello everyone. My name is Daphne Lage, and I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I have been self-publishing comics since 1992, and you know what that means.
With a few exceptions, the characters on this program are weird and peculiar and not to be trusted.
And I am the artist for the furry fantasy adventure Tall Tales and the creator of Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, a medieval fantasy drama you can read online at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS. And I am also co-host with Nita Lanning on the Raging to the Vlogs show every Monday at 11 a.m. where we talk about life, comics, and everything else in between. And sometimes that's not a good thing, depending on what that topic is. But also just to give everyone a heads up. And if you are joining me on YouTube, you can check out all my videos on how I make my comics here on YouTube at my channel at Daphne Lage, Lage art. And as an update for everybody, so I just want to thank everybody who supported or is currently supporting my House of Bob sketchbook campaign that is now live on Kickstarter. It is my latest furry artwork pinup sketchbook that's now available, along with a collection of other sketchbooks that were previously out of print and are now available in a new collected format that makes it look nice on a shelf. So the link is in the chat for that and in the show notes. But if you prefer something a little bit more narrative oriented, so the pre-launch for Ego Raven issue 12 is also on Kickstarter. It is a pre-launch. I'm still working on the issue, as you can see right here in this corner. So I don't know when I'm going to have the campaign live for that. So, but if you click on the notify me button, you will be the first ones notified when I finally go live with issue 12. So, I think that that's pretty much everything for housekeeping right now. So again, thank you everybody for joining me today. We're going to, so today, like I said, we are working on Eagle Raven issue 12. I have about, maybe like 18 pages I still have left for the issue, and we're going to be working on one of them right now. So this one's going to be a little bit odd, which is, for me, because like for the past month or so, I have been working on these pages on my Wacom Move Inc. 11, which is a portable Wacom tablet. And when I transferred those files back to my computer and started noodling with them on my Cintiq, which is my main computer setup, I realized how much more efficient the tablet is. And it does disappoint me a bit that I can't use the touch screen correctly on the Cintiq, because it seems like there's been an ongoing glitch on this version that I think I must have bought like 4 years ago or something like that, that doesn't allow the touch function. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't get it to work properly. It would always freeze up. And I ended up reading that this is a common issue with this. So it's back to using a keyboard for my shortcuts. And also, I didn't realize kind of how laggy the tablet is. I mean, the Cintiq is compared to the tablet. So that's going to be a little bit for me to get used to again. But I'm not that concerned. I decided to choose like an easier page for me to work on to kind of like ease my way back into using this archaic technology. So hopefully, we'll be able to get some work done without it being too weird. Also, I'm hoping that Streamyard decides to behave this time around. On Monday when we did our vlog, I don't know, something happened that affected both me and Nita on our ends. That's why I think it's a StreamYard problem. But whatever happened on my end shut down my computer. So I'm hoping that's not the case this time around. So I guess just to give everyone a heads up, if all of a sudden everything just disappears, but the stream is still going, just give me a couple of minutes and I'll be back in. Because it's like now I guess it seems that that's also something I have to keep an eye out for. Also, I must have like double checked and triple checked this time around. The last time I did my DRAWStream, I didn't realize that StreamYard also had changed my microphone. So the sound wasn't my main mic. I think it was one of the oh, hello. Which page? Well, actually, I haven't decided which one. I have 3 pages I have to choose from, so I haven't brought that up yet. But I think we're going to be working on page 6 of Eagle Raven issue 12 because it has like the easiest panels for me to work on that I kind of feel like working on right now. So we're going to probably do that in a couple of minutes. So I just want to make sure that my sound is okay and not sounding like I'm all the way over there, because that's what it sounded like on my last live stream. That it's like, because it was like my furthest camera, my furthest camera was the one that the mic that was using as the microphone, and it just sounded like very distant. And I didn't like it. So hopefully everything is working correctly. Like I said, I triple checked my microphone, so it is the Yeti. It's telling me it's the Yeti, so the sound should be good. So Yeah, so let me just yeah, oh my goodness, we're at the what are we? Oh, we're at the 11. Okay. So we'll let give some time for everybody to just come in and hang out. Like I said on a previous episode, well, on the previous episodes, that for a little while I'm going to be doing this 2 to 4 time slot instead of the 4 to 6 because of JD's schedule, work schedule. Because before he had a later time, so I was able to run my stream for longer before he came home. But ever since he started coming home early, I just had to run my stream early so that by the time he gets home, I'm not streaming. But hopefully in January, I might be able to go back to the later schedule. Although honestly though, it's like tell me in the chat or in the comments, like which do you prefer, the 2 to 4 or the 4 to 6? Either one is good for me. It's like I thought the earlier time slot would have been a little like too early, but I don't know. I kind of like it. It's not that big of a deal. 4 to 6 was kind of better for me because I had like more time to get stuff done before I did the live stream, and the live stream was like the way I ended my day. So Efrain, not Efrain. Joseph says he likes 2 to 4. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, it depends on the schedule that that JD has. So, or Jose, um his schedule. So I mean, but definitely for like the rest of the month, we're going to keep the 2 to 4 until he officially changes his schedule back to the later time so that I could switch back to 4 to 6. Or for, you know what, maybe I'll just like 2 to 4 better and just keep it like that. We'll worry about it when we get to it, but it's just something to kind of like everybody keep in mind, because I'm kind of wondering, like, this is kind of like the lunch hour or like the post lunch hour, but it's not like, so I'm still so if you're working, I'm still in the background. While like 4 to 6, it's kind of like you're either listening to me on your commute or you're just like you just come home and you're eating and you're sitting in front of your computer and you just need something in the background. And what better way to spend your time than listening to me rambling in the background? So the you know what, it's like let's switch the screens. Usually I wait until like the half hour mark to kind of like bring the actual work up that we're here to do. But it's like why not just get started? That's all. So like I said, this is page 6. I was technically, for some reason, well, not for some reason, I had started backwards on this issue when I was inking it. So if you could see right here in the corner here on the side, these are all the pages that I technically have done so far. And as you can see, I'm working backwards. And the only reason I did that was because the final page of this issue, um it's a good splash page, and it's something that once I get it colored, I can use it. I can like pretty much start using it immediately for like posting and stuff. And because I had got that done, I just ended up just going backwards and just hold on, let me see if I could just stretch this out here. Yeah, so just like, like just inking and putting in the shading. So the reason why all the pages are green is because the green is where the flats, it's the layer where the flats are going to go. So so what, yeah, so like here's the it's like, oh, I forgot that I have to fix something. Actually, you know what, let me do that while we're here. um so yeah, so it's like I'm going to, so what so let's see how laggy this is. So Okay, so what I want to do here is I want to fix this. So, and also I have to remember that, oh, where's my, okay, hold on. Cause it's a little, here it is. It's, a little different from the tablet. So I've been working on the tablet for the past couple of months. So now I have to get back used to working on my Cintiq. So like I said, I'm back to the keyboard with my shortcuts. So yeah, I think that's what I want. Yeah, because yeah, that's much better. That's much better. Okay. Okay, and yeah, and oh, okay, good. So it also doesn't change the okay. So I mean, yeah, it's funny to feel how a little bit slower the pen is compared to the oh yeah, like I can really feel the difference now, like it is slower. Like yeah, it is a little bit laggy, but the funny thing is like I don't remember if it was like that or when I was trying to like get the touch screen to work, I might have like activated or deactivated an option that would have made the pen work smoother, but I'm not sure. I really do think it's just because the the tablet is like it's a new processor and everything. It has well, it works like an Android tablet, so it has like its own processor. So it's just just a lot more efficient and um and it's like it just runs better essentially. Um yeah, okay, like yeah, this is much better. Yeah, so let me just tidy it up here so get that fixed. So oh, let me fix here. At least okay, good. At least this is easier to fix than I thought it would be. So because it's just funny, like the difference between like working on the tablet and working on this. Like I really do appreciate the larger screen. But the way the touch screen works on the tablet, which I guess it's like an iPad, you just pinch it to zoom and rotate and everything. And it's just like it doesn't matter that it's a smaller screen. So, but I would have liked this to have the touch screen better because it would have been yeah, that's much better. You see, because I keep trying to pinch the screen to make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay, let me just fix that a little bit. There we go. There we go. Much better. That's what I wanted. Okay. So let's just save that. So, okay, yeah. So I started with the last page because it's the splash page. Once I have it colored, then, like I said, it works like a pinup too that I could use. So the reason why everything is green is because this is the layer that all my flat colors are going to go. I just haven't gotten to them yet. So, and I like to work in green, in this green color, because it just like it's better on the eyes for me. I have enough problems as is. I always have to switch through 2 different glasses just to work. But so yeah, so I work on this green, and then I put like the shading on top of it, and then the highlights, and then I just use the green as a placeholder until I go back and start putting in the flats. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do this first on all the pages, and then once I have everything done, then I'm just going to go in and put in the flats, because the flats are out of everything that I do on these pages, the flats are the easiest thing for me to do. So the inking, the inking is obviously the most difficult. Well, actually, the most difficult is laying out the book and doing the sketching, because I'm still trying to make sure that the storytelling it works. So, it requires a lot more thought process to do that. But after that, the inking is the hardest part. It's it's inking. It's like it's just an it takes the longest because it's like the inking, it makes or break the image. And then afterwards it's just laying down that green layer and then putting in my shading, and then the flats are last. So that's why we have a lot of these green pages, and then I'm working, like I said, I'm working backwards with the final pages. But in this case, okay, yes, we want to save. Yes, we do. So in this case, though, like I said, because it's been a while since I worked on this, and the tablet is so much more efficient. I wanted to break in a easier page, so I went to this scene that's mostly like talking, the characters talking. So it has more headshots for me to work with, which is always easier to ink, because I don't have to worry about backgrounds and stuff. Like there's these pages that I have that there are other pages that I'm saving for last as well, not because they're easier, but because they're actually more difficult. So there's this establishing shot that I have here that I have to change. Um, the way I have the background laid out is pretty much a placeholder. And my intention is to like redo the background. Like I can ink them in, but this whole background I have to redo. I have to like place the characters in different positions and kind of like really set up the layout for how that background is going to look, because I have these other pages where I need to repeat that background, but I want to make sure that they're consistent with each other. And also the layout looks correct between the two panels. So I'm leaving that for last because there's a lot of characters, like background characters, and I want to get back to it when I can actually like just concentrate on that. So I've just been looking at these particular pages. Like technically this is the page I'm supposed to be working on next, but because of this layout, I kind of figured maybe, I mean, although technically I could ink them in and have you know and not worry about it, and then just like worry about that background later. But I just figure I'll just work on an easier page, and here I am about to pinch that screen. so so let's go to a panel that like I said is easy for me to ink in. And before I get into that, let's get the music started. uh, Couple of streams I've been getting um some like, I don't know, crazy music in the background. So I figured this time around I'll just do some like simple lo-fi stuff. Um so hopefully I don't get too distracted by it. you know. So as always, if it sounds like I'm fighting the music and it's not just background noise or background music, just tell me and I'll lower the volume, because I usually have my headphones lower than what I do for the screen. So, okay, I think that'll do it. Okay. So all right, hold on. Again, I have to get used to everything here. Okay. So, um so yeah, so the yeah, man, it's like, yeah, this is like so different now, because it's like some yeah, I like playing around with the foreground and background like that, like putting in, but that's the reason why I want to think out that background better, because it's important, like there's going to be important things in those backgrounds. So it's like, yeah, so I mean, yeah, so just moving the pen, it's like, was it always like this laggy? Like, and the thing is, though, it's not that it's like laggy, it's just kind of slow. And I think what it is that, like, the tablet allows me to go faster in terms of using the pen. And and I'm wondering whether I'm just expecting that the pen is not really lagging. That's just the way it is. And um I'm just expecting the speed of the new processor on the tablet, as opposed to I still keep trying to pinch. I mean, I was looking at the new Cintiqs, and because I was going, it's like, okay, so at least if this one poops out, I can just buy a new 16-inch. But when I went to the Wacom website, it seems that the touch screen is only available on their 27-inch. I guess so I don't know if that's something, like, for some reason, like I said, this not having a functional touch screen on the 16 um is just considered a bug. And I guess in the end they decided that the bug wasn't worth fixing if touchscreen is not available in this size anymore. But not completely I'm not completely mad at that. Um so so it's like, okay, so what I'll do is, just when I have to replace uh this Cintiq, I'll just buy the 27-inch, because they came out with a version of it that's actually not as expensive. Actually, it's probably the same price as what I paid for the 16-inch, except it's 27 or 20. It's either 21 or 27. I don't remember. Um so and also it's like, what the tablet made me realize is that I don't need 4K. So so of course, that um without that option, the tab the the Cintiq is less expensive technically. So so in the end, I wouldn't be spending any more for a new tablet as I did for this one, for this Cintiq. So, but I'm only going to worry about it when I have to buy it, you know, it's just kind of like, I do have it in my wish list, but but yeah, I'm not going to worry about it until I actually have to update this. So yeah, so let's see. So what else was I doing? Oh yeah, so I was talking to Nita before before the show, and we were, it's our schedules are kind of like all over the place. So usually we spend like, usually we make it a habit of working together, but like our schedules have been so out of whack these past couple of months that we really haven't been able to sync up to do that. So today we actually got to do a little bit of that, and it's like, and I was telling Nita how it's like I really, like I'm really enjoying this whole kind of like really limiting being on social media, and and she made the joke that it's like, oh, what does that feel like? Not being on social media and bombarded by bullshit 24 hours and doom scrolling and all that. And I go, well, I'll tell you what it feels like. And I was telling her about these stories that I had that like I'm percolating and working on. Um, because it's I know that I mentioned it on a previous, I don't know if I mentioned a previous stream or a previous vlog, where there's this story that I was working on that's about a a f- uh, a group of friends. They're five dragons, right? And this is a story that's supposed to that takes place during the occupation of Edenron, if anyone is following Ego Raven, the main storyline. So this takes place during the occupation of Edenron while Ego Raven is in exile. And this is a story that shows like what was happening in the meantime. Like, so I would say that this story actually takes place like right before issue 10. No, issue 11. Issue 11. It Yeah, I think it's issue 10 or issue 11, which is the one where it would be issue 11, right? So it takes place right before this issue. This is the one that recently came out. Um and about like, and it's like how the dragons are using the castle, and and using the elves and all that stuff, right? And then it's like this is also around the same time when like the elves are like beginning to fight back, and right. So this is a story about five dragon friends um who had followed Billicath to to take over Ed and Ron in the hopes that, because they're soldiers, they're bored, they're young, they're never, they're so low caste in dragon society that they're never going to have like families or anything like that. They're just soldiers. And they decided to go with Billicath to to help him take over Edenron as part of his army, and thinking that they were going to have better lives away from this very strict dragon hierarchy that I had created. And and then it's like it turns out that, oh, Billicath is also just bringing the same bullshit from Rikashan to Edenron, and it's just like, so it's about these five dragons who are just trying to like figure out like their way, since they can't go back to Rikashan because they're considered deserters, deserters of the royal whatever. Because I haven't really gotten like all the names down and everything. So yeah, so I was telling Nita like what I had so far. I was reading her my notes, and mind you, they were really really rough notes. because I'm still outlining the story, although I can't decide like what I'm going to do with the story. And and I told Nita that it made me realize that how much writing is my hobby. And doing artwork is, it's also my hobby, but it's more work related. So, because my artwork, no matter what, the end result. Oh, hey, Melissa. Hello. Because my artwork, no matter what happens, the end goal. Yeah, well, yeah. Maybe in January I might be moving back to 4 to 6 when Jose's schedule changes again. So I don't know. We'll see. It depends on like how everybody feels. Because on one hand I kind of like 2 to 4, but it's like we'll see how that goes. Yeah, writing is chill time. Yeah, and because my artwork, the ultimate goal is for it to always be for sale. Like there's always like some kind of sale thing that happens at the end. Like every issue of everything that I draw, Eagle Raven, House of Bob, Tall Tales, that's all going to end up on Kickstarter. So it's not that I cater my work for saleability, but it is something that I have to keep in mind when I'm working on these things. Um, and it's kind of like trying to ride that fine balance between the stuff that I want to do and the stuff that will sell. And the artwork gets the brunt of that, so this writing that I'm doing, hold on, let me just shut off. I have the heater on, and because like now it's like really getting cold, and so I had the heater on for the office, but it was beginning to get a little too warm in here, I guess, because I don't know, because also it's part of once I get on a live stream, it's like I guess all the talking, what it like gets the blood circulating, so I end up warmer than I meant to be with the heater on. So so it's done its job. So I turned it off. So yeah, so artwork as worrying about artwork as with the sellability factor. And that's that's kind of like something that I haven't really gotten wrapped up in with my writing. So I'm working on this story, and what I was trying to figure out, right, because I was reading Nita my notes, and and I was trying to figure out how I was going to end it, which was kind of like unusual for me, because usually I figure out my ending first, and then I start writing backwards. I figure out my ending, think about whatever cool scenes I want to have in it, and then I start connecting those dots. Actually, usually I have a beginning, cool scenes, and an ending, and then I start piecing it together. So with this story, I only had maybe the cool scenes and some lore that I was trying to figure out, but not necessarily like the whole story. And the basic the basic type of story, it's like I wanted to I wanted to try my hand. That's the phrase I was thinking. I wanted to try my hand at writing kind of like a fantasy smutty book, like the ones I've been reading lately, kind of like Ice Planet Barbarians, but with dragons. Dragons are very popular in the genre, anyway. But still, like, actually, it would be more like a romantasy, because the relationship between the two main characters is kind of like is the crux of the story, and everything else is just working around it, but it's not the main thing of the story. So technically, yeah, no, technically it would be a romantasy because this story is kind of like focusing on that. Um, but I still want to give it enough of the fantasy element, enough of the lore element that it that it's actually exciting to read outside of the romantasy that I'm trying to figure out here. So so it's like, so at this moment I only have the idea of like, okay, a dragon falls in love with an elf, and and it's like, and they're both low caste in this same in this situation. They're living very similar lives and they both want something different. um and it's like kind of like working around that. um And, part of my problem that I was trying to figure out was, I based it in the Ego Raven story, but I don't want it to directly correlate, or it's like I don't want it to be dependent on the Ego Raven story for this story to stand on its own. So, especially since like whatever happens in this story, it doesn't get referenced anywhere else. So I kind of had painted myself into a corner where it's like, all right, how do I tell this story and still explain the fact that it doesn't get mentioned anywhere else? So that people could read it as as a standalone if they wanted, but you know but if they read Ego Raven, like the background story would still make sense. Um, so while I was talking and reading my notes to Nita, I actually began to put together the ending, and I actually got like a blueprint of something that I think might work. Um, but I haven't quite decided, yet if that's where I wanted to go. Because again, it's like I still have this thing in the back of my head. Well, how are you going to sell it? And it's like I'm trying to tell myself I'm not worried about that yet. I'm not worried about that. I'm just more concerned about putting together the story and making sure that it makes sense before I worry um about whether it makes sense selling it. um so that's kind of what I've been working on. And yeah, and it's like I've just and yeah, and I just made me realize how much writing is the hobby. So next time it's like someone asks me, okay, if you do artwork, if your art is your job, what do you do for hobbies? I say writing. Writing's my hobby. There we go. So I have an official answer for that. Um so 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 I've been reading, trying to get through the books that I bought at Monsterotica because I was able to score tickets, well, a ticket for the next one in May. So I have already that set up, and I already have an idea of the books I want to get at that show, at that show. So, so of course I have to finish reading the books in my pile that I bought from last Monsterotica. Um, what Melissa says, that writing is the part of comics unhindered by the logistics of drawing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I think that that's part of the appeal, is that I don't have to worry about what the pages are going to look like, what anything is going to look like just yet. Like, it's just words right now. It's just words in a notes app on my phone. And yeah, and there's something very, oh, the wrong thing. There's something very freeing about that, because I'm not thinking about layouts. I'm not thinking about sketches. I'm not thinking about character designs. I'm not thinking of, oh, whatever, it's like that I would have to worry about if I was doing a comic. It's like, now I'm just writing words. And right now the words can mean anything, and it's just like, okay, let me just kind of get this story out. um so, and part of me wanting to write, but you see, but here's the funny thing, right? Part of why I wanted to try to write this story is because I've been so irritated by the romantasy books that I've been reading lately, not the smut books, although we're getting into that in a minute. Like, just the romantasy books, where they weren't good romance books, and they weren't good fantasy books either. So it's kind of like, it's like two fails, like two fails do not cancel each other out. They just make one big fail. And and I wanted, like, to take the concept that, like, the concepts that I enjoyed, and see if I could kind of like make my own thing, like write my own thing. And that's part of the reason why I chose like 5 friends, right? 5 dragon friends. Because the final idea that I have for it, but it's not the ending of the book, it's just the final idea, is that I wanted to do like 5 stories from each of the friends' point of view, and how they kind of like, and how they deal with different relationships. So this first one that I'm writing, this main one that I'm writing, it's about the one friend who hooks up with an elf lady, right? And and their relationship. And they end up, and so all the dragons end up, like, I guess, like, living, because they can't go back to their original kingdom. Like I said, they're kind of like they're outcasts. They were deserters for following Billy Cath, and then they become traitors again by doing something that now they well, that is part of the point. Like I said, dragon couples are very big in in fantasy smut right now, and well, they've been for a while. And I wanted to try my hand at writing something. So yeah, so, and then it's like, so then the dragons, so they kind of like they end up living in this kind of like borderland, right, between the mountains and the valley, um where they end up, so it's like, so they end up encountering all these different races. So one dragon, I'm thinking, like, one dragon would so you have the one that dragon and an elf, right? And then you have one dragon that hooks up with a human, one dragon hooks up with a goblin, one dragon hooks up with an orc, right? And one dragon hooks up with a dwarf lady. And it's like, oh, I think this would be really funny, um uh kind of like, just writing exercises, right? Could I accomplish with these dragons what, like, say, Ruby Dixon did with like 27 books of Ice Planet Barbarians, right? It's all, each book is a different couple, right? And it's like, and what I like about those books is that even though technically the premise is the same, the setup is, they're identical in all the books, the relationship dynamics are so different that you feel like you're reading it's a different book. Like you don't feel like everything about it is the same. Although honestly, I prefer a writer named January Bell. She did a series called Accidental Alien Brides. And honestly, I like those stories, those books better than Ice Planet Barbarians. Um there's the women in her books seem to have a little bit more agency in the relationships they get into, that they're kind of forced into. Um so I'm leaning more towards that. Um but um but that's kind of like the experiment that I'm playing around. So it's like, could I write 5 books of these 5 dragons and 5 different relationships that they're in? And it's like, but I have to get through the first one, you know, but, and it's like, so yeah, so I've just been trying to like, I was just playing around with that. And, um, so I'm getting through these books that I read that I bought at Monsterotica. And I finally got to another book, another author, one of the other authors. And this book might be breaking my streak in the monster smut genre. Um, like I said, with romantasy books, I have yet to read one that I actually enjoyed. I mean, I think too many of them, if not all of them, like they're too stretched out. The characters are not really like, the relationships are not good enough. Like they're not convincing. That's the word, convincing. They're not convincing enough. Um and honestly, I really do dislike I'm beginning to really dislike the whole enemies to lovers trope that a lot of these books really rely heavily on, because I never feel like the relationship is convincing enough to make that switch. And and it's just like, so I had always said that it's like, oh, the monster smut books, I've yet to read one that disappointed me. Like honestly, it's like uh I've read a whole bunch of them, and I have yet to come across one that's like, you know what, this is kind of stupid. No, they were all very entertaining, extremely entertaining, Ex- except for this one that I'm reading. And I don't want, to call out any names or whatnot, because it's like, I don't know, it just sounds so déclassé. I don't know, it's like, it's like, look, I mean, it just could be that I'm just not into what this writer is doing in her book. And um and like, the issue just might be me. So it's like, I don't want to say that it's like, oh, like, but then again, technically that would be the issue with the romantasy books too, that it could, because it's like, they're bestsellers for a reason, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know why, because I thought I would be the audience for this, and it just turns, and I was just like, I'm more surprised than anybody else that I'm not, it seems. um but honestly though, with this particular book, that I haven't decided whether I'm gonna finish it or not. And if that's the case, I'm not going to read the other book from this author that I got, because it seems to have the same issues, which is what inspired the title of, or at least the topic of the stream, is most of these books that I read are indie published. Novels are still pretty much the domain of traditional. Let's see. Jared says, I'm actually writing a smut story wanting that feel of Up All Night with Rhonda Shear feeling. Pure sci-fi meets Pinocchio, but sexy. You don't know until you do it. Don't know until you do it. So good luck, sir. Good luck. And honestly, I think more guys should get into writing this stuff too, because it's like, because why not? Why not? I like to read. I would like to read different like ways, uh, just to see like the different ways different people write this stuff. And I know, for obvious reasons, this genre is very, it a lot of, it's a lot of women write it. And but the funny thing is that there's like cozy fantasy, like one of the number one authors in cozy fantasy is a dude. All this time I thought it was a woman writing cozy, because you hear cozy fantasy and you immediately think, oh, it's just another. No, it's like, no, it's a dude, and he has the bestseller in the genre. So you never know. So, oh, what did I just do? Okay, so but you see, but here's the thing. It's not necessarily the story itself that's the problem, right? I mean, I dig the characters. I the premise, is the premise, right? Like everything else lines up correctly, right? And like I said, it's like these books are usually self-published. Although in novel writing, like being a traditionally published, at a big house or a legacy publisher or whatnot, that's usually the goal. But as these companies are offering less and less in exchange for publishing with them, a lot of authors are moving to self-publishing. Now, comics, look, self-publishing in comics has been a thing since, practically the beginning. It's like, because if you weren't traditionally published, you were underground, and it's like the underground guys have been self-publishing longer than everybody, and then like independent comics became its own genre. But like we've been doing this for 40 years, and indie comics is, like I said, older than that if you count underground comics. Look, you can even go back to Tijuana Bibles if you want. But in novel circles, indie publishing is still a new thing. So they're still kind of getting their bearings in terms of self-publishing. And like I said, this book that I'm reading, everything else lines up. Like I said, I like the characters, I like the premise, I like everything else. But the thing that's really holding me back on this book are things that maybe if she had taken a little bit more care in the production side, wouldn't be such like a hurdle for me to get over. And what I mean by that is that the biggest issue that I have with her book is that her layout is funky. The way she laid out this book, I don't know whether she designed the book herself or she had somebody do it, but it just screams, I question your decision making. Every time I open the book, it's so strange. It didn't occur to me to open up the book to check on it before I bought it, because I always thought that this shit was standardized. I always thought like how the interiors of a book was laid out, your fonts, your typeface, how things were, your kerning, your leading, all that other stuff. I always thought that was standardized. And when I started working on when I was working on the Eagle Raven novelization, I made it a point to learn what those standards are, like what fonts everyone uses, what typeface size, it's like your margins. I mean, it's and I look through the books that I had off on my shelf, and it's like, what's the standards? What is everybody formatting their book to? Right. And, depending on the book, you have different types of formatting. So, what I was trying to do was kind of gauge what the overall standards are. And for some bizarre reason, none of that is in this book that I'm reading. None of the standards. Like the typeface is like super, super big. Like I think technically it would be considered like large print, but that's not what this book was advertised. Large print is usually advertised as large print. And it's like, look, I'm not knocking large print. It's just that that's not what I thought I was buying, was large print. And because of that, the book is no. You see, I don't want to say that. You see, that's the thing. That's not what I'm saying. But the problem is that because the text is too big, I can't read it. Like I'm an old having a problem reading my monster smut because of the text. And that's the thing. Like I said, I have to switch out my glasses just to work properly, right? And it's the same thing with reading. I have another pair of glasses that I use for reading that doesn't work with this text because it's kind of like, and if I take off my glasses, I can't hold the book in a way that's comfortable for me to read it. So the text is in kind of like this weird middle ground that is actually uncomfortable for me to read. Um, so I'm, and it's like I'm still kind of able to read it, but it really fatigues me, and I can only read it a little bit at a time. I mean, I know that if it was just like standard type, I could probably get through it. I mean, if anything, Jared says, use your phone. Actually, what I probably should do is check to see if this book is available in e-reader, because then I can adjust the text, the typeface, and then be able to read it. But here's the thing, like the typeface is like it's huge. The typeface is huge. And then like the page numbers are like the opposite. Like you could barely read the page numbers because they're so tiny. And then it's like she has like the title at the top. And again, like all these font sizes are wrong. It's like nothing. It's like none of this is helpful. So I'm like, what the heck? It's like, who made these decisions and were they paid for it? And and it's like, honestly, that's like the main reason why I'm having trouble with the book. But the problem with finding a huge problem like this is that once you see one issue, all of a sudden your brain starts finding all the other issues that are there. When I used to work in a print shop, one of the things that I absolutely hated is when a customer found a mistake on a business card. Those were the worst. For some reason, like, people were just like, could get completely unhinged over the most basic ass business card, right? And, and these people, they're not designers, right? They just pick a template. They just write in their shit, right? And they proof it, we print it, cut it, and that's it, right? But the problem is, right, is that you would be surprised how many people will check a proof and not realize either their own name is spelled wrong or their phone number is wrong. Just to show you how long ago that was, because people weren't really putting emails in their business cards at the time. But yeah, it was mostly their phone numbers and their names, right? So, and then we get mad at us. It's like, we showed you, I don't know your phone number. We showed you the proof. You said it was okay. It's like, we don't know how your name is spelled. You know how your name is spelled, So, and the problem is that once they found that one mistake, all of a sudden, everything in the card was suspect. It was cut crooked. The typeface is wrong. It's like, the ink is not black enough. And this, like, all of a sudden, this basic ass card, right, is all of a sudden the center of the universe. Oh, if this card is not wrong, it's all going to implode into a black hole. If this card is not right, and and it's kind of like the same thing that happened here. It's like, it's like, oh, the text is too big. The page numbers are too small. Why is this here? Why is that here? That all of a sudden, everything else started like, why did they make a decision here? Why did they do this? Why are they writing like this? Right. And that leads to the other thing, the why are they writing like this? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's an ebook reader, like a version of this, like a Kindle version of this story, to see whether that's really the issue that I'm having. Because the other thing that I have, what I have with this book is, I feel like I'm being talked at as opposed to being immersed in a story. And what's funny is that this coincides with, for some reason, I've been getting a lot of videos popping up about writing in the passive voice, that you shouldn't write in a passive voice. And it kind of like, to give the example that was given, it's like, like a passive, like you have to write an active voice. So it's like, it's like, the boy hit the dog, right? As opposed to passive voice, where it's like the dog was hit by the boy. That was the sample that they gave. It's the only one that I remember. So, and this book is a lot of the dog got hit by the boy, as opposed to the boy got hit by the dog. No, the boy hit the dog, as opposed to the dog got hit by the boy. So yes, it's like the boy hit the dog. So active, passive voice, right? And I finally, and I didn't understand it that much until I started reading this book. And it's like, this book is pretty much written almost entirely in passive voice. And then it's like, at the beginning, there's kind of like this weird intro that says that kind of like introduces the book as a story someone else is telling you. So that technically you're not reading about the characters, you're reading about someone else's account of these characters. And the thing that I didn't understand was, why though? Why are you, it's who's the narrator? Why do I give a shit about the narrator? Who's the narrator? Why? Like, why did you make that decision? Right? And, and then it's like, I'm reading it and the story has footnotes on top of it. Talk about another why, right? Especially in the introduction with this narrator. They said that you can read the story without reading the footnotes. So why put in the footnotes? If the footnotes are not important to the story, why are they there? Right? I mean, so I keep fixating on that. And the funny thing is that the moments that I do read the footnotes, they're not saying anything. They're not really, just like this narrator that's supposedly telling the story. They're not saying it. I don't understand this decision. Like really, it's like, and because they chose this narrator gimmick, I guess, their entire story is written in passive voice because it's somebody else telling the story. They're not involved with the story directly, so there is no active voice. It's like there is no she kisses the orc. It's like the orc kissed her. It was just like that. Melissa says, I remember one fantasy book I read in high school about a demon, and the footnotes were asides the demon made that added humor. It was really well done. Was it a Piers Anthony book? That sounds like a Piers Anthony book. Piers Anthony. Because that sounds like something he would do. They would do. I don't know. I think is Piers Anthony a woman? I don't know. I always assumed the author was male all these years. I only read one Piers Anthony book, and that was Nightmare. Yeah. I think that was probably the only age, like high school, like pre-high school, like junior high school was probably the only age that I could have read a Piers Anthony book. Or Pierre Anthony, Piers, whatever, hold on, let me just put in this this green layer that I had mentioned before, because like I said, it's like this will allow me to put in the shading without getting distracted by too many colors, and then I can worry about the flats later. So yeah, so I just kept, so the more I read this book, the more like these decisions were just irritating me, because it really didn't add anything to the story, and it affected how the story was being told. So instead of me being like immersed in a story, I'm like a bystander. And I really don't like that feeling. Like that's not the reason why I read these types of books, And and the thing is that, so again, it's like going back to the topic where it's like, be indie but don't look indie. Right? And and that's kind of like the thing. Like I said, these are self-published books, but do you have to look like you're self-published? Do you have to kind of like, yeah, I know like all this stuff costs money, to get it typeset, to get it, edited, to get it, proofread and all that stuff, right? But like, like even with like indie comics, right? I mean, the whole point is that we try, I mean, I don't know, we try to put out the best possible work that we can, and oh, I thought I changed that. Okay. Um, and it's like, and I think that a lot of us who do this, like, our goal is to make our books, like, yeah, they're, yes, it's like I self-published it, but I'm not giving you a zine, it's like I'm not giving you something that's just like an 18th generation Xerox stapled together. It's like I'm trying to make this look um as professional as I can without being a professional, like professional in a mainstream kind of way. Um yeah, it's like quality, right? It's like, yeah, it's like, it's like you want to make sure your work has a certain level of quality that the audience is expecting. I mean, it's like Melissa says that I know I will proof things over and over again and just don't see a mistake until months or years later. Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. I mean, but that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, those little slips. I mean, there's this whole discussion about like whether these romantasy books are even being edited anymore. And people keep bringing up like grammatical mistakes and spelling mistakes and everything. But honestly, the that's not what irritates me about those books. Like my main point of saying your book wasn't edited was me looking at your first volume being almost 1,000 pages, and I know for a fact that book wasn't edited. Because there is no story that you're telling that merits your first volume to be 1,000 pages. So it's like, and then it's like, and then when I read that first volume, I'm usually right, or I know I'm right, because it's like you can see how like their story is only like there's only enough story for one volume, but they have to stretch it out into 3 so they could sell 3 books for the series. They say, oh, it's a series. And it's like, no, you don't have a series. You have one story that you stretched out over 3 books, but your story is actually 1 book long. You know? Right. It's like, unless you're detailing the political fallout of World War I, you probably don't need 1,000 pages. No, absolutely not. And there is not one romantasy author that goes that deep. Shit. It's like there's barely a regular fantasy author that goes that deep. So, it's, I guess like the comic book equivalent would be the people who say that, oh, my story is 180 issues, or my story is 80 issues, or my story is 50 issues, and they can barely get past issue 3. It's like, if you edited your story down, your story is actually probably 4 issues, maybe 10 at most. It's like, look, Eagle Raven is 16. And mind you, I fit a lot in those 16 issues, which in the end is the reason why I veer off into novelizations, because it allows me to add all the extra stuff that, yeah, would have been fun in the comic, but wouldn't have been a benefit to anybody. Let's see. I read a 350-page book over break. It was a standalone, high concept, told a complete story, and had a distinct feeling, world, and main character without any exposition dumps. More of that, please. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. When did you start your series? Okay, so I started kickstarting Eagle Raven seriously in 2021. So takes me about like, so I can get out like, so I've been like putting out 3 to 4 issues a year. Like I said, this is issue 4. I mean, issue 4. This is issue 12, right? So this is probably going. So there's 4 more issues left after this. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. I got Eager Raven's got so much good stuff in it. So I pretty much have about a year left to finish this series. But it's like, yeah, but once it's complete, it's going to be 4 volumes, for the entire story. And we're talking about like 4 trade paperbacks. This is volume 1 and volume 2. So it's 4 trade paperbacks for this story. Right. And mind you, the first volume of some of these romanticities will be thicker than this, will be thicker than the 4 volumes put together. And the novelization that I'm working on, I only want it to be in 1 volume. The next, after issue 12, volume 3 comes out. So issue 12 finishes volume 3, which is what I'm working on. So once volume 3 is done, then we'll get issue 12 is done. Volume 3 is next, because that completes volume 3, and then we'll have 4 issues left to finish the series. So where was I? Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. So right. So that's the equivalent, right? So the equivalent of these novels and comics are people saying, "Oh, I have my story's 50 issues," but because look at how long it's taking me to put out 16 issues. Like, it's taken me pretty much the better part of 5 years, right? Now imagine if the story was 80 issues, none of us would see it finished, So, but also it's like, when it comes to, these novels, it's like, you didn't need to be 3 volumes at all, So, when your story is really just fits in one, when your story fits in one book. But I digress a bit. So, reading this book, right? And the thing is, and I've seen a lot of self-published novels where, you can tell they're self-published. They usually use clip art for covers. Their layouts are kind of funky. They put like 2 little margins. Sometimes like their text is really tiny, and they go practically all the way to the edges, because the smaller your book, the less expensive it is to print. But you're not doing anybody any favors by having shitty layout that nobody can read. So the thing is that how much mainstream standardization does the audience, like, is the audience entitled to, essentially, even if you're doing an indie book, whether you're publishing a novel or you're publishing, a comic. It's like, it's like, because obviously this author's just lack of standardized format is probably ending up going to be what stops me from picking up any more books from her. It's like, if you keep formatting your book like this, I can't read this. And I wanted to buy a physical copy because I wanted to read a physical copy. But then I have the dilemma of, you made such a strange decision in how you write your book. I don't know if I want to spend the money to buy an e-reader version of your book just so I can get through it. And it's like, and that kind of like made me think about, like, what things in indie comics do we just go, nah, get your shit together, and then maybe we'll talk later. I would say the equivalent would be poor lettering, whether the text is too big or too small. Like, there are standards. You just have to pick up The Essential Guide to Comic Book Lettering by Nate Pecos. It's like, he literally standardizes what lettering should be and how it should look. So there's no excuse for having different fonts on different pages that aren't even the same size. There's no excuse for like that will turn me off from a book, from a comic, right? And then here I am finding the book equivalent of that. Another thing that I think that the audience like does, it's like they have that expectation for, is, it's absolutely killing me that I can't just pinch the screen, that I have to do everything on my keyboard. It's absolutely like, I can't believe how quickly I got so used to just being able to do touch screen, like gesture stuff. It's like, it's really, like another, it's like, so like, artwork is subjective. Jesus. Artwork is subjective. Okay? That I understand. But there's a certain quality that, of artwork that I think that people do have an expectation for. But it could, but that again, it's like, that's subjective. It's like, obviously Eager Raven does not look like a Marvel comic, in any sense. It's like the coloring's different, the inking's it's like, I don't draw like that. It's like, that's not what it is. And I think that people understand that when they buy my book, they're not getting something that's equivalent to a Marvel comic. It's like, I'm pretty sure people understand that when they see my book, right? But at the same time, there's a certain quality that I want to make sure that I always present. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm not Arthur Adams, not by a long shot. I'm not Mike Mignola. I'm not, but I have my own set of skills that I bring to the table. I have, my own, my own way of doing things that I would like to think is not offensive to, to the eye, that I like to think that my artwork has a certain look to it, that it's attractive in its own way, um, without it looking like, even if it doesn't look like I could be published by Marvel. Like I said, nobody has that illusion. My book, you can put my book next to a Marvel comic, and yes, they will look different. They will look different, and people will immediately see that it's like, okay, it's like, this is an indie book, and but the thing is, though, I'm okay with that. That's kind of the point. It's like the whole point of an indie book is that it's not a mainstream book. If you wanted a Marvel comic, you'd buy a Marvel comic. But if you're in indies, it means that you're looking for something that's less corporate, maybe has a little less finesse. Maybe it has, just something, it's quirky. It's quirky. It's like you're looking for something quirky. If you're an indie, that's pretty much what you're looking for. But there's still a certain level of quality that has to be there. Like, look, even in zines, I've been watching a lot of zine content, and and it's like, yeah, it's like zines. It's like you can be absolutely chaotic with zines, but it's really amazing to see what people can do with just cutting out stuff from magazines and how it's laid out, and just like, and how a collage, and it's chaotic, like superficially it's chaos, but then all of a sudden when you look closer, there really is a certain there's a certain skill that goes into it, so yeah, you don't have to have your stuff looking like mainstream stuff, right? But there is but the oh, so enjoy the comics. Enjoy the comics then. Yeah, so make sure you confirm so that you get your comics bundle, so you can check out the work that I do, and so I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Um so yeah, so it's like, so there's a way as indie creators that we can present ourselves a certain way without like losing what makes us indie. But there are things you have to do to kind of not scream that you're indie, because there is that expectation. I mean, especially if this is something that you're trying to make money at. And I think that that's kind of like the distinction, right? Because it's like, I'm talking about this novel that I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out this basic storyline, right? And I'm not concerned about how it's going to sell. I haven't even gotten a coherent story yet. And, so worrying about how it's going to sell is like ridiculous to me. It's like, it's way too early for that. But when I get to that point, you better be sure that I'm going to be doing a lot of research into how the books should be made, what the standardized layouts should be, it's like how it's supposed to look, how it's supposed, like really something as little as learning that novels are not supposed to be printed on white paper, which blew my mind. It never occurred to me that novel paper, the papers you print novels in, they're not supposed to be white. They're like a very, very light cream, right? Which explains why this short story that I wrote and had printed. So this is a short story, and it's text, but it's on white paper. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why this always looked wrong. No matter how many times I tweaked the layout, how many times I printed it, it always looked wrong. And now I know why. It's because I'm printing it on white paper when I'm supposed to be printing it on off-white paper. So after I finish, like, like, I'm always tweaking the formatting on these, because this is one of my earlier editions, and you can see how it goes a little too close to here. So that I have to fix that in the next edition, right? Because that's not good. That's not good, right? So like I said, this is one of my proofs, and I'm constantly tweaking these books, the more. Yeah, you're not supposed to use white paper. Lilith says, I never knew it could make a difference. And yeah, for real. I didn't know that either. It's like I had such, an aha moment, you know? So the next time I set up my book for printing, I have to make sure it's on off-white paper. After, of course, I finish fixing the margins and everything, right? So excuse me. So kind of like little things like that, like little details that you don't even realize you're looking at it, but something's wrong. And that's kind of like how I feel with the typeset, how the typeset was in this book that I'm reading, is that I've seen large print books. This doesn't look like a large print book. This just looks like it's typeset wrong. And and it's like, and that just becomes kind of like, I guess, like a turnoff, because I'm going to make sure I'm not going to get this woman's books again. It's like, I just have the two. And it's like, okay, like I said, maybe I'll get the one for the Kindle and see if, like, maybe I can overlook the passive voice part of the story. Just to kind of, like, once I get the typeset, the typeface more at a comfortable size, but if she doesn't have that, I'm not buying her books anymore. But I would Lilith says, I've always wanted to make a comic, but I don't have a clue to where to begin with. I would recommend playing around with zines first. Comics are kind of like a more involved version of a zine. And especially if it's something you've never done before, a zine allows you the freedom to really get the hang of telling a story using pictures. Or it could just show you that might not be something you're into. Like, you think it's a good idea, but you're not quite sure until you do it. And then when you do it, it's like, I don't know about this, right? So, and also a zine is something that you could just easily do at home. You don't need to do anything fancy. It's just, you just take some Xerox paper, fold it in half, and you literally start telling your story that way. And, and it's like, and look, and it's like, and you just keep going until you decide that's something that you really want to study. Or you decide that it's like, oh, this is, you know what? It's like, I think I'm going to do something else. This is a lot more involved than I thought, because, doing comics has a tendency. Well, Tiara says, it's like, I've never thought to do a zine. So it's just random pictures. It's whatever you want. I think like the basic idea of a zine is that even if it is random pictures, like think of it as like a tiny scrapbook, right? Like, so even if it is random pictures, right? There's still a through line, in that, in those in that randomness, there's still a story to be told there. Even if it's just something as simple as, I like this magazine, and these are the pictures that made me like this magazine, right? Something like that. But there's still a commonality with the images that you put together. So, and comics is kind of like, it grows out of that, right? Because it's like, it's the story, the story it's the important part, right? It's like, because even when I watch these people making zines, um they're thinking of, well, what is it that I want to say with this? And in the end, it's like, if comics is something that you want to do, um the question is the same. What story do I want to tell with this? And that's where everything starts. So whether you're just making like kind of like a scrapbook type of thing, right? Or you're just like, the images are, that they have a purpose together. Um yeah, that's kind of like where you start. And it's like, and like I said, a zine would be like the easiest way to start experimenting with that. Um and then it's like, in the meantime, you can, it's like you can look at the books that are, because obviously something is inspiring you to think of doing this, right? Something's already put that little spark in you to like, what, maybe I'd like to do a comic, that looks like fun. Maybe it's like you're reading a manga and it's like, oh, that looks like a lot of fun, or something. And it's like, um so go back and look at those things that are inspiring you, and get kind of like an idea as to what exactly made you start feeling that way. I mean, like, to use myself as an example, um it was two books in particular, two comics in particular, that put me on this path. It was Wendy and Richard Pini's Elf Quest, and the original 4-issue limited series of Rocket Raccoon. I think that came out, I think that was both 92. 1992 was a very 1982. 1982 was a very formative year for me. A lot of good shit came out in 1982. That's so, and I remember like looking at ElfQuest and realizing, wow, a comic could look like this. Like, because at the time I was used to like, oh, I was on the wrong layer. I'm, I was already familiar with like comics in general, but like mainstream comics. And ElfQuest was something so completely different than what I was used to seeing. And I was like going, wow, it could really, it's like it was like this story, the epic story, beautiful artwork that didn't look like mainstream. It didn't look corporate, right? It wasn't corporate stuff. Although ironically, the Rocket Raccoon series, which is from Marvel, that was a corporate comic. But the thing that stood out for me was the fact that it was a comic book about a space raccoon. you know and And I only learned later that a lot of that story is all Beatles references, like the music, the Beatles band, music, that it's all like Beatles music references. So that only made it more endearing to me later on when I was older and realized what was happening. Because Rocket Raccoon is a play on a song called Rocky Raccoon from the Beatles' White Album. And it's like, and it was just really funny to realize that. So, but it was the fact that it was about a space raccoon. I took it at the time when I saw it, I took it more literally. It's a space raccoon. And those two things combined put me on the track that I'm on now. It's like I do furry comics, I do furry art, I do fantasy comics, I do furry fantasy comics. you know, and and it's all because of those two things, right? But I remember also doing a lot of these little homemade comics, at the time, trying to imitate what these books were doing. So, so it's like, I was doing like this, so I was like trying to figure out how to do comics by actually doing comics. But at least at the time, it never occurred to me that I would get to a point where it's like I would be selling comics. So selling comics wasn't an issue, So that's why like something like zines is, I think that's a good start, because also it removes that thought process. You're just folding paper, you're just scribbling, you're just pasting, you're just looking at other things, getting inspired, and you're not worried at this point about, oh, how am I going to sell this? That's not the point right now. You don't even know if you like it. So also, be wary of anybody who like sees you doing this stuff and goes, oh my God, you should totally sell that. Totally. Don't worry about that. It's like, you can worry about that later. There's plenty of time for you to worry about whether this is something that you want to either make a career or it's like monetize somehow. It's like, now it's just like you're in an experimental phase. Because I think that that's part of the issue with what I'm talking about in terms of this book, is that people don't get out of their experimental phase when they want to go pro, essentially. And they don't study the craft enough in order to really make that transition. So, you want, so it's like, so I think that this woman wanted to write these novels, but I guess like she never left the experimental phase to know what she should be actually putting out in terms of like monetizing this. Because like I said, like my biggest thing is like, why did this need to be a narrator? Who's the narrator? Why are they important? And why are they getting in the way of this story? And it's incredibly distracting. Like I said, something as simple as even just knowing the standard formats for the book is incredibly distracting, because this is screaming to me that, I bought the book expecting you to be a professional, and I opened it and realized that that's not what you are. This is an amateur book. And, on one hand, there's nothing wrong with that, because again, it's like if you're looking at self-publishing, you kind of understand you're not looking at mainstream books. But at the same time, there's still that expectation that's kind of like, at least give me the minimum standard of quality. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I don't want to be discouraging, but at the same time, it's like I want to instill like a sense of realistic expectation if you're going to be audience facing. If you're just doing this for yourself, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the thing about, me talking about this novel that I'm trying to figure out. I mean, for all I know, it's not even a novel. Maybe maybe I'll end up doing it as a comic. I don't know. It's like, it's still, I don't have the story, so it doesn't matter at this point. But, but there's that line when you cross it, right? When you're just doing something for yourself, you're free to do whatever you want. There should be no pressure except from you yourself wanting to be better at what you're doing. Yeah, Melissa says, if you're putting this out in the world to make a somewhat serious go of it, there has to be there's at least a baseline standard to meet. Yeah, I agree. And it's like I said, being an amateur in and of itself is not an issue. That's not the issue. What makes you continue to be an amateur is when you don't take into consideration what the audience that you're essentially hoping to get their money for your work, what the expectation of the audience is. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, when I buy a book, even from a self-publisher, there are certain things that I'm willing to overlook because I know that costs money. But it doesn't cost money to do your research. It's like, literally, it's like it's the old gag, the old canard, the internet's free. You can literally, you can literally go online and you can find this information. There are websites that spell out like what the standard. Oh, hello, Martha. Hello. There's a certain, like, there are websites that spell out what the expectations are for how a book should be laid out. So the fact that I'm seeing a book with friggin' giant text that's not large print, right? And the typeface is all over the place. It's like, do you need me to send you the website? It's like, I found it in 5 minutes. It literally says how these things are supposed to be laid out. There's even a program. Unfortunately, it's just for the Mac, and I hate Macs, and I wish that they would put out a PC version of it. Oh, I forgot the name of it. But it's literally made for writers to put their manuscript in them, and the program has all the standard layouts automated. That's, I mean, it has everything for you. It's like, you choose a template, depending on the type of book you're writing, you choose the template, you put your manuscript in, and everything is set up for you. So there's no excuse to not know how to make your book look as baseline professional as possible. It's like, even when you're doing comics, all you have to do is look at other comics. Look at the comics that you enjoy, that you like, that you're actually attracted to that made you buy it. And then think about what it is that attracted you to that. And then, like, especially when it comes to like layout and, you know, it's like how it was laid out and how everything's done. And then it's like you try to imitate that. You know, I mean, it's like, look, we don't have a $1 billion machine behind us, right? It's like you'll be lucky if you have an extra person who can help you with this, you know? And it's like, yeah, and it's like I understand the limitations of what we can actually accomplish at the level that we're at. You know, I mean, every time I reprint one of my books, I'm always making changes to it depending on what I learned. That's, you know, what I learned at that time. You know, so um you know, so yeah, it's like for us, it's always evolving until we finally get to a point where, you know, it's like where we're kind of like, okay, we get it. You know, we know what the standards are, and you know, it kind of becomes like second nature, right? But like, look, honestly, look, even now, I'm telling you, it's like white. I've been printing on the wrong paper all this time. I'm not supposed to be using white paper. White paper is for, what is it? White paper is for nonfiction, like for like textbooks, and then right, and then it's like, and then the cream paper is for like literature. So there's like white papers for various specific types of books. White paper on a comic looks fine. White paper on text, there's just something off, but I could never pinpoint it until someone said, it's your white paper. You're not supposed to print text on white paper. So you're always learning something. So let me just put in this background, and let's see what'll look good here. Oh, maybe this. Let's see. Let me see. Let's see how this looks. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. We got something there. Okay. All right, so there we go. So we're just hitting the top of the second hour, and this is pretty much all I got done. But typical. At least, you know. I mean, yeah, I still miss not being able to use the touchscreen. Honestly, it's like if I was able, it would have been a game changer if I could have activated that on this Cintiq, but alas, it is not to be. It is a bug they refuse to fix, so we're going to leave it at that. So here is the one panel that I was able to get like my base coat, my base layer down for the flats that come later. Yes, I'm flatting. Well, I'm the green is for the flats that comes later. So what I'm doing is I want to finish the book, and then I'm going to go back and fill in all that green with the actual flat colors that's going to go there. So because it doesn't take me that long. Usually it takes me about like a couple of days to flat an entire comic once it's done. I figure that I get all the hard parts done first, which is the shading and the inking. Get all that done, get that out of the way. Because I really do want to get this book out early next year. Honestly, January. So I'm really pushing to get as much done this month as before the end of the month. So that we could get that Kickstarter hopefully later in January, but you know, we'll see. There's still, you know, I got I got 19, 18, 17 pages to go. Yeah, I got 17 pages. I got to finish with that. So yeah, so that's what we've been working on. So yeah, so yeah, hold on. So yeah, so what do you guys think? I mean, it's like, is indie just indie and we're putting too much pressure on indie publishers, self-published publishers, self-published creators, indie publishers? It's like, are we putting too much pressure on them, like, to hold a certain standard? Or is it just the fact that they're indie published that they just get a pass on all this stuff? I mean, it's like, is that, I mean, because it's like, honestly, this book is really testing my patience, and we haven't, and honestly, and that's before the stuff with the story. So I don't know. It's like, me personally, I think that if you're going to want your stuff to be consumer facing on a certain level, you have to understand what that audience is expecting from you. Because honestly, the audience for zines, the people who collect zines, have a different expectation than people who are buying self-published novels. So I don't want to say that it's all the same thing, but know those expectations. For, like I said, for me, I think that they need to know these expectations, because when they don't, I find it really irritating and a waste of my money. And it only hurts them in the long run. But I don't know. What's your take on it? Does it matter? Like I said, if we're all indie publishing, does it matter in the end? So yeah. So, and so if you're watching this on the replay, put your comments down below, because I'm curious about this. Because this seems to be kind of like a constant fight. Am I professional looking enough? It's because that's also like a lot of my internal dialogue. Oh, hey, Charles, hello. He says, this is why I have an indie publisher. I finance the creation of the content they publish, I promote. Right. So you kind of like depend on them to kind of like give your book that final professional look. Although your books are pretty professional looking with the artists that you choose and everything. So, you're already kind of like starting out with that. But yeah, it's like, because also it's like, I also have sometimes that internal dialogue as to like, oh, am I professional looking enough? Or I'm not, if I, it's like, would people like me more if I were like more professional looking, whatever that means. But again, it's like, that's that internal dialogue, and it's just to kind of like understand where that's coming from. And then I know this is more than I can manage. I know it's a lot of information, but like I said, it's like, start small, start slow, start with the whole zine idea, see if you even like doing it. And then it's like later on, and then it's like, as you move forward, then you can worry about the rest of this stuff, because yeah, it's anxiety inducing. I understand. But good luck to everybody in the chat trying to make their way in comics, in self-publishing, and just like I said, seeing if this is even for you. Maybe it's just best to keep it as a hobby and just keep it for yourself, show it to friends, just to keep that. Not everything needs to be monetized. That's all I can say. Not everything needs to be monetized. And honestly, there is a certain freedom to deciding that. So I want to thank everybody for keeping me company. Melissa goes, no matter what genre, I think most artists have the same thoughts and feelings. We want to make good stuff. You know what? That's the most important thing. Yeah, but I want to thank everybody in the chat who kept me company today. Thank you so much. I want to thank my beautiful eyeball people for having me, yammering in the background. Thank you so much. I hope that you got your work done while I was keeping you while I was keeping you company. you know, um, you know, so, thank you so much for, for that. So I appreciate everybody. And, it's always more fun when we're all hanging out and talking in the chat. So thank you so much for that. Oh my goodness. So if you want to learn more about me and my artwork and everything else, including the campaigns that I have live and on pre-launch, you can head on over to my main portfolio site at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, where you can read Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn for free. But if you prefer your fantasy to be more of a furry Lord of the Rings adventure, you can follow the link over to Tall Tales. That's TAIL lessonline.com. and read the archive there of over like 1,000 pages of, it's like you'll be busy on the Tall Tales website. So, and also, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter when you're on those sites. So don't forget to do that and sign up so that you can keep up to date with all my new art, my sketchbooks, my comics, my Kickstarters. And as you have seen in the chat, you can get a free PDF comics bundle just for joining. So enjoy Ego Raven, enjoy Tall Tales, and enjoy the Oswald Chronicles just for signing up. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. Remember, be better today than you were yesterday. Be better tomorrow than you were today. Really, it's just do your best. It's okay. Just do your best. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. And we'll see you next time.
You are all weirdos.